everybody, it's Father Casey, the pastor of Epiphany of Our Lord Church, back to share with you another episode of the Fourth Magi. This week in the Gospel, we find Jesus in Capernaum, this beautiful little, not a city, but more like a town on the coast of the Sea of Galilee, and he's preaching in the synagogue. Now, while he's preaching in the synagogue, a man who is possessed comes into the synagogue, an unclean spirit who has possessed him. And when the person that's possessed speaks to Jesus, it's interesting the use of pronouns. Now I say that because we live in a culture in which nobody can seem to figure out what's the right pronoun to use. And you ask the silly question, what's your pronoun? What pronoun would you like to use? When for years and years, English classes taught the proper use of pronouns. And now we seem to have thrown that out the window. And you find people with, like, my pronouns are we and they. And even though they're a singular person, they use a plural pronoun, which is kind of silly if you think about it. But I want you to notice this in the gospel, that when the person possessed speaks to Jesus, they say to him, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? I know who you are." And it's interesting that the switching of the pronouns, that it goes from it's one person speaking to Jesus using the plural pronoun of us, and then switching to "I know who you are." I just thought that was a curious note. And whenever you find dealing with a person who's possessed, they're using different pronouns to identify themselves. And I thought that was curious because we live in a culture where we can't seem to get our pronouns straight. Anyway, so dealing with this idea of possession, Jesus simply speaks to the person, actually the demons inside, apparently there's multiple ones, and says, get out of him. And they do. They leave. And the people are really struck by Jesus' authority, one, with his teaching. He teaches differently than the scribes. Now, I imagine for them to say that he teaches with authority, he teaches like he knows what he's talking about. And the scribes probably are fumbling through papers, they're reading from their notes, they don't have a real command of the law, and they don't speak about it as if they have authority. They speak probably as like, well, I'm just a servant that is speaking my job. I'm doing my job, is what they're doing. But Jesus, when he teaches with authority. Like, if you were going to speak to somebody in the topics of like physics or math or any other realm in the realm of science, you know who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't. You know who has a command of the topic and who doesn't. We've all experienced teachers. One that read from their notes, blah, 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 blah. And we know how boring they are, and we all would nod off during class because they don't speak like they have authority. And then we've had teachers that speak with a passion, that speak with an understanding and a knowledge of the topic that they're teaching, and we are mesmerized. We are on the edge of our seats in the classroom. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you could think about some teacher, whether it was in high school or college, or whether it was in grade school. You know the teachers that had a command and authority when they were teaching their subject matter. But Jesus apparently taught in such a fashion, and the people were mesmerized. They were awed by his teaching style. And then to go and exorcise these demons from this man, they say, wow, even the unclean spirits listen to him. Wow. Like, he doesn't have just command of godly things, he has command of evil things, evil beings who will listen to him. Not that he commands them to do his bidding, but he commands them to do what he tells them. And they listen because they know who he is. But that leads me to think about this idea of demonic possession, or oppression, or temptation. Those are the three things that evil spirits have over us, that they can deal with us. Now, there are a lot of people that say in our world that there are no such thing as demons. And there's nothing better that the demons like than to have people who don't even think that they exist. That would be like you and I saying, well, there's nobody crossing the border. I've never seen anybody cross the border, so therefore, nobody is crossing the border. And to deny that, somebody would say you're ridiculous. You really are not that swift. And you say, well, I've never seen it, so you may talk about it, and you may show pictures and videos, but they can be tampered with, so therefore, I don't believe in it. Well, kind of foolish. And you're ignoring a problem that will have ramifications later on. Same thing with the idea of demons existing and also having the power to tempt us, to oppress us, and to possess us, if the circumstances are accurate for that. Now, I'm not going to get into all those different aspects of it, and you can't say, like, the devil made me do it all the time. That's not something we can do either. We are capable of placing ourselves in situations that are quite tempting without any help from Mr. Satan, okay? So, but to realize that, as St. Paul tells us in his letter to the Ephesians, that it's not a physical battle that we're dealing with. We're not going into a field with armor and with a sword and with a shield. We're fighting a spiritual battle. It's a battle for souls. And the demons are alive and well in this battle. And if you don't believe in it, well, then you've already lost the battle, because the enemy already has a foothold on you. Now, there are two people that I'm going to have Michael place a link in the video. And that is Father Chad Ripperger and Father Carlos Martins. Right? They are two men, alive and well, who are exorcists in their respective dioceses. Now, every diocese in the world has a chief exorcist. The person that the diocese goes to in cases where it has to be investigated whether this person is possessed, literally, or they have psychological problems. But there's a whole list of items that they have to check on to see if it's true or not. And I really want you to check out these videos, and I'm going to give you the link to two of them, but they have many more videos, and hopefully your interest is sparked to find out more about the spiritual battle with demons, which is alive and well in this country. And if you haven't figured that out, that there's a spiritual battle going on, then you're living under a rock. So wake up, all right? So one thing that really came out of my listening to Father Ripperger, when he talks about his cases and the demons, is that their number one tool, not only for the person being possessed, but for him, is that the demon tries to exalt fear, wants you to be afraid. And fear is something that is so rampant in our society today. People are afraid of everything. They're afraid of diseases. They're afraid of people. They're afraid of cultures. They're afraid of society. They're afraid of institutions. But we're afraid to take chances. We're afraid to take risks. We're afraid to do our best. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of success. Fear is running rampant. It's the number one tool that the devil has. But the number one antidote to fear is faith. It's believing that God is with us at all times, that Jesus Christ died for us so that we are his brother, we are God's children, and that no matter what we're going through, whether we're going through physical ailments like cancer, or we're going through marital problems, whether we're dealing with problems with our children, whether we're dealing with problems with our job, fear can creep in and take hold of us, and we make bad decisions, bad choices, because we're not turning to God and believing that God has a plan and that God is going to see us through. And so I think it's a good reflection of this idea of the devil having the ability to tempt us, oppress us, or possess us, but that the devil is involved in the details, as they say. But if you and I are practicing our faith, going to church. Now, you might say, well, I don't really want to go to church. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Jesus, the Son of God, he had no problem going to synagogue on the Sabbath. He went to the temple on high holy days. Jesus Christ practiced his religion. So, if you think you're different than Jesus Christ, more power to you. But, are we practicing our faith? Are we going to church? Do we have a daily prayer life? Are we participating in the sacraments? One thing that was so interesting from Father Carlos and from Father Rippinger is that the number one sacrament that really helps us to deal with the devil is the sacrament of reconciliation, the sacrament of confession. Because when we do that, we're crying out to God, help me with this temptation. Help me with this sin that I keep falling into. And listen, everybody falls into their particular sins over and over again because we're human. All right? We don't give up because we commit the same sin over and over again. But we go to the sacrament of reconciliation to receive the graces to fight the battle another day. And the devil hates that because we're getting the graces from God, the strength in order to resist him. So, how are we participating in the sacraments? Bottom line is, what tools, what weapons are we incorporating into our lives? Like the rosary, or other weapons, Mass, Eucharist, confession. What weapons are we incorporating into our life in order to fight the spiritual battle, which is very real? And if you watch these videos from Father Rippinger and Father Carlos, and Father Gabriel Amorth, although he's deceased, he was a chief exorcist of Rome. If you watch those videos and you hear what these men have to say, they're not making it up. And you'll tell by watching them. They're not making it up. They're not trying to instill fear in us. They're trying to help us understand what is the battle at hand, and are we prepared to fight it? Good luck this week, and God bless you.